This is going to be kind of like our 5G or semiconductor moment, where in 5 years we'll be thinking, how do we get this back on shore if we don't do something now?
Cryptocurrency has entered a pivotal moment in its life cycle. This next year will define the next 5 years. And now we have proof that institutions have been secretly buying Bitcoin.
As it went down to 17,000, it wasn't a shock to me that you saw some of those institutions step in for the very first time, buy Bitcoin.
Why? Everybody's starting to realize this.
It will have to be a component in a portfolio of broad portfolios, like a pension fund.
Wall Street bigwig Tom Farley, the CEO and chairman of the board for Farpoint Acquisitions Corp., comes clean on everything institutions have been doing behind the scenes. Listen to this. Listen to what he says at the end.
What's happened with Bitcoin? When Bitcoin was at 60,000, you had a lot of institutions on the sideline who were looking and saying, boy, we'd like to invest. We'd like to allocate 1, 2, 3% of our portfolios, pension funds, for example. But at 60,000, it feels toppy. There's some mania, but they've done the diligence. They've met with their investment committees. And so as it went down to 17,000, it wasn't a shock to me that you saw some of those institutions step in for the very first time, buy Bitcoin, store it in their portfolio. So I knew there was a buyer.
But interesting that those institutional buyers stepped in when it was showing its volatility. You would think that the opposite would be true, that they would want to stay away, unless you think now that this is such a critical asset class that no one can afford not to be in it.
Yeah, well, it was a moment of capitulation. So if we could see all the books and records, I think it would be a combination of some really smart Bitcoin whales that have been in it for 10 years, and then fairly quickly some of those institutions stepping in. That's exactly what's happened. I mean, look, in crypto, yes, Bitcoin's up 40%. It doesn't mean it's going to go up another 40%. But in crypto, there's Bitcoin, and then there's literally everything else. Bitcoin is trusted, it's largely censorship resistant. There will only and ever be 21 million Bitcoins. It will have to be a component in a portfolio of broad portfolios, like a pension fund, maybe just to a small extent, but it will have to be there.
You probably watched Gary Gensler get grilled in Congress yesterday. Watch our video if you haven't.
You're pushing a woke political and social agenda, and I think abusing your role in the authority of the SEC as cover. Frankly, you're front-running Congress, you're front-running the courts, you're front-running even the own administration, and no one has held you to account for that. I mean, I wish the Biden administration would say you're fired, but the list of folks they need to do that for is long. Congress hopefully will with the SEC Stabilization Act.
And in the Gary grillings, you probably saw somebody photobomb Gary with this Coinbase Stand with Crypto shield. Here it is. What is this? What is the Stand with Coinbase movement? Should we be supporting this? CEO of Coinbase, Brian Armstrong, explains what Coinbase's Stand with Crypto movement is and why you should support it.
So Stand with Crypto is here to tell people that 52 million Americans have now used crypto. That's 3x the number that own electric vehicles. It's more than hold union cards in the United States. It's a massive constituency, and they're frankly a little unhappy with the US because the US is lagging behind. We don't have clear rules on the books, like 83% of the rest of the G20 countries, for how crypto should be regulated, how consumers should be protected, and how this innovation can happen here in the US. And so there's a couple of bills going through the House right now that have bipartisan support for how we get clear market structure, how we get stable coins in the US. And these entrepreneurs and the 52 million Americans really want this to happen. And so we're here talking about Stand with Crypto. We've got the pins. People can check out standwithcrypto.org and sign up if they want to be a crypto advocate. This is something America needs to get right.
By the way, if we lose crypto in America, it will be hard to get it back. This is our moment. And you only get one moment. Watch the CEO of Coinbase, Brian Armstrong, explain that this is crypto's 5G moment, where if Congress doesn't act within 5 years, major ground will be lost to overseas, and we'll be desperately trying to get this back on shore. Listen.
We know that a lot of these crypto CEOs are trying to showcase the number of jobs that are really being created in this country through the crypto industry. I know that you, Coinbase, have also been involved in efforts in Ohio, the home state of Senate Banking Committee Chair Sherrod Brown. Is it really possible to motivate and galvanize people to vote based on crypto?
I think so. Of those 52 million Americans, some of them, if this is a single issue voter for them, they really want to see that this is going to happen here in the U.S. And in Ohio specifically, there's 1.3 million Americans who have used crypto. They've started to see these jobs go offshore. They've started to see the harm that's happened by the lack of clear rules. So I think they're definitely looking at their elected representatives, including Sherrod Brown, to see how they're going to respond to this issue. And are they going to come and put clear rules in place, or are they going to ignore it?
And what are you hearing from lawmakers so far in the meetings that you've had?
Yeah, so we've had some really amazing meetings today with the highest levels of our government and lawmakers, and I think there's a general consensus and understanding from both sides of the aisle that this is an important issue. We can't keep having Americans be harmed and having this move offshore. This is going to be kind of like our 5G or semiconductor moment, where in 5 years we'll be thinking, how do we get this back on shore if we don't do something now? So the lawmakers I've spoken with are all high level aligned to this principle. It's kind of common sense. Let's make some clear rules. But politics, are messy, and so these bills we need to get people from both sides of the aisle to come together on a few little remaining issues. Like, for instance, is there a state pathway for stablecoins in addition to the federal pathway? And I think we as an industry, we're flexible. Honestly, I think there's a reasonable set of places where these rules could land. I'm okay with any of them. I just want there to be clear rules, because in the absence of that, the SEC has just been on this path of regulation by enforcement, or harassment, if you will, where every startup in the space gets a subpoena or a Wells notice, and that's not sustainable, and it's not okay.
Guys, get 10% off tickets to Bitcoin Amsterdam, linked below. We'll be there. Hope to see you there. If you're in Los Angeles on October 5th, we will be attending the roast of WendyO. I'll link this in the description. This should be fun. And by the way, for those of you wondering about updates about the SEC versus Coinbase case, subscribe, like the video, show up here tomorrow. This is what you need to know.
SEC Chair Gensler, speaking of, is testifying right now on Capitol Hill before the House Financial Services Committee. He seems to be reiterating much of what he said in the past, that the industry is rife with non-compliance. Certainly the SEC has brought a suit against Coinbase. What are your latest thoughts on the SEC's actions, the enforcement? If they were to win your case, is there a path forward for Coinbase in the U.S.?
Well, as I mentioned, the SEC has gone 0 for 3 on the last 3 judges' rulings, and so we feel very good about our case. Some of the facts that those judges have already ruled on, for instance, that the underlying assets themselves were not securities, multiple judges have come to that conclusion, and that's a key fact in our case as well. So I feel good about the path that's going there, but the SEC, I think they did, my understanding is that Gensler did share something in the testimony today, which is that he believes that the CFTC should have spot market authority. The administrative branch has said that. Now he's finally saying that. Some of these bills that just got bipartisan support in the House also say that. They carve out a clear path for where the CFTC should regulate, and the SEC should have a role in crypto securities. There should be a path to register those, which hasn't happened to date. So maybe we're starting to see some consensus there. I don't know, but there's a lot of people in Congress that are unhappy with his approach.